everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the books I read this winter. The first one is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. It is a really fun read and I think that Netflix should pick it up and turn it into a miniseries, and as of last night I found out that Hulu actually did. So it's a book about a girl on a Caribbean island, I won't say which one and the book doesn't say either, and she's talented with a special gift of swimming. And it follows her from her journey from this island to 2 different continents and that of her estranged children. The children aren't speaking to each other and you'll find out why. The reason why the book is called Black Cake is there's significance to this cake, and we read it for book club at Christmas time. And even though we're all come from different socio-demographic backgrounds, all of us could relate to like that one family recipe that binds us. So one of the women in the group said that she was very lonely because she didn't have any family, and so she made something called lane cake. It's very complicated. It seems like a southern dish, and she shared it with her neighbors. And in my case, my equivalent of black cake is fruit cake. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll make it for Christmas and film it and put it on my channel. The book is really good. I think it's a great start for Black History Month, and it's nice to recognize African American authors. This lady seems to have Caribbean background, and I won't tell you her personal history because it'll influence your perception of the book. I want it to be a really nice, pleasant surprise for you. The next book is Life Undercover by Amryllis Fox. This book is written by a CNN journalist, and at first glance I thought, well, what was the point of that book? Like, it seemed like it was just an exercise in writing. And then after putting the book away and talking to the other members of the book club, it sounded like it was the kind of book that was very quiet and it would fly under the radar screen, until you realize that that's exactly why it has relevance. It's very quiet and unassuming given the nature of what this reporter was dealing with. She was dealing with terrorists and dangerous governments, and in her quiet way, she kept us safe and we had no idea. She was just, we assumed, a reporter, and that was it. It follows her life from the beginning of her childhood through her education and her journey in journalism as well as her marriage. So it's a quiet book, but it's a quick read, and it is Life Undercover. The next book is Revenge Wears Prada by Lauren Weisberger. This is the same writer that wrote The Devil Wears Prada, and I love that movie. If you like the movie Devil Wears Prada, you will be disappointed on how Andy matures on print, because the Andy in the movie is quiet in a way that she's not flamboyant in the way she dresses, but she has a very powerful inner strength and intelligence that gets her in through her internship with Miranda Priestly, and that's supposed to be a loose adaptation of Anna Wintour at Vogue. I love Devil Wears Prada. Even though the movie's quite old, I still love it. I thought Anne Hathaway was fabulous. I thought Meryl Streep was amazing. Emily Blunt, I thought everyone was great. The book itself, this is one of those rare moments where the book disappoints, and if you really like Andy's character in the movie, you will be surprised that she makes the choices that she does in the book. Full disclosure, I have not read Devil Wears Prada, and frankly I don't want to. The movie just did it for me. I am a visual person, I love fashion, and the movie did it. I don't think the book can capture it. I think it's nice to see, where is Andy 10 years from now? Is she married? Who did she marry? Is the marriage legit? And will it last? Does she have a baby? What happened to Emily? What happened to Miranda Priestly? So I think you'll enjoy it. The next book is Bluebird by Sharon Cameron. So Bluebird is actually marketed as a young adult fiction, and I didn't know that until I did my own research to see who's reading it, what are they saying. because the subject matter is very adult. Who is Eva? Is she a spy? Is she the good guy? Is she the bad guy? She's escaped from Berlin, Germany, and she's with another woman, a young woman, and she's her caregiver. But she's more than that. And why is she a caregiver? So this book has a lot of questions, and you're not given any answers until you really are invested in the book. The subject matter is adult. It deals with Nazi Germany after the fall of Germany, and she flees Berlin. And there are a lot of questions. How did she end up fleeing Berlin? What happens to the other girl that has put her in Eva's care? And is Eva even her real name? If you are an avid reader, you're probably going to guess the plot twist, but that being said, I thought it was really good. This is a warning though for writers like me who do lots of research before they write. This writer did so much research that the end where she actually explains Project Bluebird, you realize Project Bluebird is way more interesting than the whole book itself, and you want to know more about Project Bluebird. Granted, the subject matter is a little intense for a young adult reader to read that, and given our educational system where everything is being censored and kids aren't getting the full story, I think this is a nice introduction to World War II and the heinous acts that happened during Nazi Germany, and how it's a warning sign for our society now. And it's also a warning sign for young authors like myself who do so much research that you hope that the book lives up to the amount of research, because I was fascinated at the end where the author's notes describe Project Bluebird, but the book doesn't just explicitly only deal with Project Bluebird. You'll find out why. So I do recommend this book, and I actually do recommend this for young readers. So enjoy. I would give this easily 4 stars, and it's Sharon Cameron Bluebird. The next book is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, and I have to say this is a DNF. Did not finish. It was kind of tedious, and it's got mixed reviews. Some people really love it on the YouTube BookTube blogosphere. I found it tedious, and I'm really annoyed because after giving it a good effort before I gave up, I actually got late fees. And you know, obligers like me don't like late fees. So it's one of the 4 tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. Feel free to give it a shot and tell me what you think. Should I give It Ends With Us another chance? The next one is The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. This is a win for me because 1, it's a very thick book, and 2, it's my first step into horror, and that's one genre I don't really want to explore, and my colleague at work said, give this book a try, I think you'll really like it. The book takes place in Pennsylvania, and now all I want to do is go to Pennsylvania. It is a story of a husband named Nate, a wife named Maggie or Maddie, and they have a son, and they move into Nate's childhood home and things go horribly wrong. The best way I can describe this is Stranger Things meets Stephen King. And I'm actually going to tell you all the criticisms about this book and why I think it's fabulous. The first criticism was woke fiction. I didn't know this was a genre, and I don't even like the word woke. I wonder if the reason why the criticism about woke fiction is because I'm assuming Chuck Wendig is Caucasian. So he is a cop, and people who are doctors, judges, and cops, and maybe waitresses and recently flight attendants, they see all walks of life of people. So when they make a social commentary, they actually have clout. They're valid. So he makes various social commentaries about crime, and of course he's going to. He's a cop. This is something he knows. And that was one of the criticisms. So ignore the criticism and read the book. The second is about the length of the book itself. It's over 500 pages, and I don't have any criticism about that. If you're a good writer, I'll invest 500 pages with you. I'll stay with you the whole time. And this writer is described as a line-by-line writer, and I agree. Every word, every line is just nicely succinct. And I get criticized in my writing for being succinct to the point where people think it's abrupt. He gets the same criticism, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think he's just very good at conveying lots of information in succinct lines. So I liked it. The third criticism they gave was he goes on about things like Dungeons and Dragons. Now, if you guys watch Stranger Things, you know those kids like Dungeons and Dragons. If you say Dungeons and Dragons to anybody else, most people wouldn't know what it is. So yeah, actually he has to explain these things because he's explaining a child's world. And if you're just an average reader, you might be like, I don't care. Why is this necessary? The last thing I like about this book is when I think about horror, I think about, being a kid in the 90s and this movie called It came out by Stephen King, and I think it involved a clown, and it made me really fearful of clowns. But I thought that horror is just gross, scary, frightening, disturbing things just to give you the thrill of fear. What I liked about this book is there's an underlying message about the reality that we all live in different realities. And in today's world, we can relate to this. Your reality is very different based on your socioeconomic status, the news channel you watch, the neighborhood you live in, the state you live in, the language you speak, the amount of education you have. And is it so shocking that he writes a book about a possibility of existing in different realities and what happens when something sinister crosses from one reality to the next? So of all the books I read, this gets a strong 5 out of 5 stars. Now, what am I going to read for this spring? I'm going to take a pause from fiction and do a lot of books on health. So the first book is The Diabetes Code. This book, I've reviewed it before. I'll link it above. This is by Jason Fung. I really like this book. I read it 3 years ago and it started me on my intermittent fasting journey. And the reason why this book is really necessary is because I had a very serious health scare this summer where I got pancreatitis from a drug called Ozempic. And one thing that really resonated with me was he said, we're treating a dietary disease with medication. And sure enough, medications have side effects, and in my case I had the unfortunate instance of developing pancreatitis, and the fallout from that is unpleasant, and I won't go into it in this video, but it's pretty serious. So if you're wondering about intermittent fasting and why there's actually scientific basis for it, I recommend The Diabetes Code by Jason Fung. The next book is also by Dr. Jason Fung, and it's The Obesity Code. Now, how many of you know people who weigh 300 pounds and they're perfectly healthy, and then someone else gains 20 pounds and all kinds of health crises happen as a result of it? In the Obesity Code, it explains the role of insulin and various other hormones, but so far I'm not very far into the book, and it explains the role of insulin really well. Another thing I discovered, not from this book, but just something to keep in mind, is the BMI is actually not a medical tool. It's actually a tool designed by a mathematician to study populations, but yet doctors use it. And going back to what happened to me this summer, my BMI is on the high side, and that's why I was put on Ozempic, and it caused obviously pancreatitis and a whole host of other problems. And it's kind of a warning bell. Take this seriously because the medical community does prejudge you and make certain assumptions based on that one quality. Highly recommend Dr. Jason Fung. Even though he's a doctor, his writing is very approachable, but make no mistake, it's very scientific. This is not like the infomercial you see on a Saturday morning. The next book is Women, Food, and Hormones by Sara Gottfried. So I've been struggling with low carb because when you become a diabetic, they send you to classes and they teach you this formula that every 15 grams of carbohydrate equals 1 carb, and you're allowed to have like 3 carbs at breakfast, 3 carbs at lunch, and 5 carbs at dinner. I forget. It's confusing. I'm not really good at it, and 15 years later, I'm learning to be good at it. And her argument is that the reason why women struggle with weight is because of hormones. And she goes through every single hormonal disrepair and through questionnaires. And so you read it and go, yep, that's me. Yep, that's also me. Well, actually, that's not me. And it kind of fine-tunes how you deal with these hormones and what's the repercussions when they're out of balance. What's nice about this book is she describes keto, which is where your body switches from carbohydrate metabolism to fat metabolism. And she talks about it in relation to women. So a man and a woman can both do the keto diet and they won't get the same results, and I believe that. She describes keto that's modified for women, and it's the first time that someone like me, who's a regular person, can actually do it. And it's very doable because if you notice, I flagged a few things. She actually describes meal plans and how to go about it. So I highly recommend this book, and I wish she had a podcast because I'd like to know more about her findings. And frankly, I wish that there were more doctors like her, because if you're in the healthcare industry long enough, you see how many shortcomings we have, and we need precision medicine doctors like Dr. Sara Gottfried. Good job. The last book is old school. I am reading The South Beach Diet. So this is 20 years old and it's still relevant, as you can see from the number of pages I've flagged. Again, this is low carb. This is not paleo. This is not keto. But once again, this Dr. Arthur Agatston has described how you can actually do it. It's very doable, the South Beach Diet. And I think if you're going to actually do this and get ready for a swimsuit season this summer, I believe that the 4-week pulse described by Dr. Sara Gottfried is a good Kickstarter, and the South Beach Diet is actually a good lifestyle change. So tell me what you think of these books, and comment below how many of you are using spring to get ready for summer, and what sort of health measures are you taking, and what books are you reading to guide you through it. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.